WWE Raw live tonight from Greenville, South Carolina is in the books. Pretty much your go-home show for this coming Saturday night's main event. And then 2 weeks from tonight, we're going to have another go-home show as we have Money in the Bank on the horizon as well. Pretty eventful show tonight as we had a lot of setup for this Saturday night's main event. And we had a couple of Money in the Bank qualifying matches, both of which were on the women's side. So nothing for the men yet, at least on Raw. And we did see a very, very unfortunate injury in one of those triple threat matches. It was Rhea Ripley versus a returning Kairi Sane and Zoey Stark. And in the middle of that triple threat, Zoey Stark came off the top rope with a missile dropkick, and she landed brutally on her leg, twisted and bent. Obviously, we're all hoping for the best. Keep Zoey Stark in your thoughts. And all the well wishes and positive vibes in the world going out to Zoey Stark. However, when you look at the way she landed, I don't know how we're going to get anything other than bad news tomorrow. Once that MRI is done, based on the way it looked, we're not going to see Zoey Stark again for a year. So let's really, really hope that tomorrow we get a miracle and we get some very, very positive and surprising news that maybe it's just a tweak. Maybe it's not as bad as it looked. And maybe, just maybe, she's going to be all right. But by the looks of it, very, very devastating injury. They didn't show her on camera as the trainers got her out of the ring, leaving Kairi Sane and Rhea Ripley in the ring to finish the match. And I was kind of thinking out loud on social media during that match, and I'm like, okay, now that Zoey is out, let's hypothetical this. How do you audible this if the plan was for Kairi Sane, who honestly I think should have won her return match and thought had a really good chance since it was in a triple threat format? Doesn't mean you have to beat Ripley. So let's say the initial plan, and we don't know what it was, but let's just say hypothetically the original plan was for Kairi Sane to go over by pinning Zoey Stark. Then Zoey gets knocked out. So how do you audible that? You don't want to pin Ripley because Ripley might challenge for the championship against Io Sky at Money in the Bank. That's kind of what I was thinking they were going to do. So I'm wondering what kind of adjustments needed to be made in that match, because it went on for several more minutes. So I'm wondering, backstage, are they trying to figure it out, get the word into the ref so we can relay that to Kairi and Rhea Ripley? Or maybe it was supposed to be a riptide to Zoey and they just changed the finish. So if Ripley was scheduled to go over the entire time, no big deal. They probably only altered it slightly. I doubt Kairi would have taken the pin in that situation. So they might have had to have changed it to that. But what it would have been more interesting is if Kairi was scheduled to win, and now they've changed all of their plans and they put Ripley over because they were like, well, we can't have Kairi win now because Ripley's in the match and we don't want to pin Ripley if we're going to give her a title shot. You see what I mean? So I'm kind of curious tomorrow if some of these, some of the journalists kind of dig up the dirt on this and find out if any, major adjustments were made throughout the course of that match. I'm very curious to know, what the original plan was. But that's all secondary. Top thing on our list should all be just wishing the best to Zoey Stark. That was an absolutely brutal looking injury. It's something you never like to see in any sport. Happens a lot in football, happens a lot in basketball. You see people come down on their knees or whatnot, and it's bad instantly. So let's just keep our fingers crossed that we are wrong. And it was just a really brutal looking injury, but at the end of the day, Zoey's going to be fine. That's the best case scenario I think we can hope for. But all in all, I'd like to know what you guys thought of Raw tonight. Give me your grades in the chat, 1 through 10, A, B, C, or D. It was an okay show. It wasn't tremendous, but I thought it had some interesting things go down because, number one, they're setting up Saturday night's main event in just a few days. Also, we're qualifying for the Money in the Bank matches now and starting to head into our summertime programs. And we also had some potential storylines being furthered as well, with Roxanne gifting Dominic a box of tendies. That's kind of interesting. And we had a few other, interesting things take place, like a very rare in-ring face-off between Logan Paul and Gunther. That was kind of cool. Overall, though, I'd say tonight's show was kind of just a mediocre one. I'm going to give it a C+. Hopefully I'm not undergrading that, but I didn't really think it was one of the greatest Raws I've ever seen. Kind of a predictable main event as well, as, I don't really see them pinning a champion right now, but I'm not seeing them beating Braun Breaker either, so you kind of figured that had to be a DQ with all of the competitors on Saturday night's main event closing the show, and that's pretty much exactly what happened. So that kind of was a little bit predictable, for me, but all in all, not a bad show. And like I said, a few interesting things and a couple of scary things like Zoey's injury took place here. So let me know what you guys think in the chat. I'll cruise over here and say hello to everybody. Probably won't be a terribly long review tonight because we don't have a lot of wrestling news to get into because we did a podcast last Wednesday. We did a podcast on Sunday, and on Saturday, and the only thing we really have to talk about outside of tonight's Raw is Darby Allin successfully summiting Mount Everest. And now I guess he is on the way down. So we'll probably be seeing Darby Allin, hopefully, back on TV sooner rather than later. Let's say hi to everyone in the chat. Doug Unfunny, Melissa, Tatanani, William. Been here for 32 months. Thanks, dude. We've got Rodrigo. Good to see Daniel Barry Sports. David Brown's in the house. Also, Jay Lambo, Stone Cold 10X. We've got Victor Colon, our boy, Barry. You know what's annoying? Bailey isn't hurt at all, and she's not on these shows. I know. I mean, I'm guessing they're waiting to bring her back at some point. It's got to be tied into whatever they're doing with Becky Lynch. And I'm thinking the longer she's out, the more likely it is they're going to do something fun with her. Because if she's out all of this time and then she just comes back normal-ass Bailey, nothing's really changed, then, God, what'd you hold her off TV for so long? So I'm hoping there's going to be some sort of a swerve there. Maybe she's going to show up and align with Becky Lynch or turn on Lyra and help Becky win the championship, or Becky's going to win the championship and then she's going to feud with Bailey. So they might be waiting to bring Bailey back until after Becky beats Lyra. Then maybe they move Lyra over to SmackDown or something, and then Becky's there with the title all by herself. You bring Bailey back in, you got yourself an Intercontinental Championship feud between two of the four horsewomen, which might not suck. But yeah, I don't know. I think Bailey was done dirty around WrestleMania time, that's for sure. Ryan Dempsey, good to see you. Also, Ben Espinoza in the house as well. Good to see Isaac and everybody else, chiming in. Good to see you tonight. Thanks for being here. Might not have a huge audience, but whatevs. It's just a Raw review. No big deal. Please do me a favor. Smash that thumbs up button for me. And before we get into Raw, I definitely want to mention and congratulate Darby Allin, who successfully climbed Mount Everest. I think he reached the summit yesterday or the day before. We finally had some pictures uploaded. Now, I don't know how the cell service is up there. Darby is not the one posting these. It looks like it's other people. And the one photo that we saw was Darby at the top, wearing a short sleeve shirt. I don't know how you can just dress like that up there. And it's like an Edward Scissorhands shirt. He did look a little like bigger in the face. So, just the pressure and just he's been in that, camping outdoors for 6 to 8 weeks. I don't know how you shower when you're climbing Mount Everest. So, the food that he's eating and his cleanliness is probably a little different. That's why he kind of looked different. But then there was another photo that I saw today of a fully clothed Darby. I think it was Darby. It was posted by DDP, and it shows him doing the little DDP thing and DDP thanking him for doing it. But there was so much gear, I couldn't even really tell if that was Darby or not. So it does look like Darby has successfully made it to the top of Mount Everest. I have no idea how long it takes to get down. I would assume it's quicker down than it is going up. But he's already been at this for several weeks. I think the plan in AEW was for them to hope he would be back for Double or Nothing. He's going to be back after Double or Nothing now. And now it's a matter of, is Darby going to finish the story? And like I said last year, it felt like to me, right when the beginning of the Death Rider stuff started and Moxley put that title in the briefcase, it felt like Darby was going to be the one to take it off of him. But then as we got into the new year, we knew Darby was going to be out for a few months doing Mount Everest, and people were already by January and February getting tired of Moxley's run. And I was thinking, well, it's probably not going to be Darby because there's no way they're going to be able to wait for him all the way into like the end of the summer to come back and beat Moxley. But now it's almost June. Moxley still has the championship. He just survived a cage match on Wednesday, and there's a lot of rumors that at All In, Jon Moxley's match will not be the main event, which means All In will probably not be the place where Moxley drops the title, as he is going to be facing the winner of the Owen Hart finals between Hangman Page and Will Ospreay. So now it's starting to look like It's going to be after All In, possibly at All Out, or maybe even at Wrestle Dream, where all of this shit started. That is where Darby is going to win the AEW championship, which means we got a couple of more months of this shit. So we will see. Either way, congrats to Darby Allin. I think it's nuts to climb that mountain, but some people really want to push themselves to the limits. I can respect that. I don't understand it, but I can definitely respect it. I understand setting goals for yourself no matter how high, and trying to achieve those goals. It's a goal I would never set for myself. Just wouldn't be worth it to do that for so long while you're stepping over a bunch of frozen dead bodies to get up to the top of Everest. It's just nothing I understand, but it's what Darby wanted to do. He set the goal, he accomplished the goal, and congrats to him. That it's got to be insane to make that climb. Elizabeth climbs Mount Whitney, which is the tallest mountain in the continental U.S. down here. And she climbs that like once or twice a year. She's done it a bunch of times. And that's crazy, But Everest, you're going up into fucking space up there, and it's just nuts. So congrats to Darby. I think that's incredible that he did that. I'm glad it's over because, he's a very, very popular and over wrestler in AEW, and I think he's got a world championship run in his future when he gets back. So just wanted to offer that congrats to the very crazy Darby Allin successfully climbing Everest. And I don't know, have you guys ever climbed Everest? Ryan, you probably did. How do you get down? Do you just sled? You just sled down? You can to carry a sled up on your back, and then when you get to the top, you're like, all right, I'm going to sled down. That's the way I envision it in my head, and that's the way I like to think they do it. And if they don't do it that way, please don't spoil my fun. All right, let's get into Monday Night Raw, live from Greenville, South Carolina. I didn't catch the venue here. I don't know what venue they're using these days down in Greenville, but it used to be the Belo Center. I don't know if it's the same now. I'm not sure. So that's where they were tonight for Monday Night Raw. We did get an announcement earlier on in the day. WWE loves, it's almost getting too much now. When they first started it, when Kevin Dunn left and all, it's kind of different. But now it's every single day we got to get, it's like the NBA and NFL. We got to get the shot of the wrestlers coming in with their luggage. Interestingly enough, they're in full makeup. So that means they come in the building to sit in hair and makeup for 2 hours. Then they go back outside to act like they're walking in. Kairi Sane was shown entering the building today looking like $1 trillion. My God, gorgeous as all hell. There ain't no way she threw that shit together in her hotel room before hopping an Uber over to the arena. So it's just a little bit silly the way they come in so done up. I'm like, they were in there. Your hair and makeup people just did all that to them. Now you're going to make them walk back outside to walk back in. So fucking stupid. So anyway, it was spoiled that Kairi Sane would be in one of the Money in the Bank qualifiers. And WWE didn't even decide that until today, because yesterday they had already advertised Breakker versus Uso and 2 Money in the Bank qualifiers. And they just put up a graphic that said Money in the Bank qualifiers, which means they don't know what the matches are going to be yet. As of last night, they hadn't decided. So it wasn't until today, until everybody got in the building and got in the creative room, they decided which 6 women to put in these triple threats. I wish they would have shit planned out a little bit earlier than that. Otherwise, they would have posted those graphics yesterday. But they waited until today because that's just how they do shit on the fly. And it was the 2 triple threats were, like I said, Rhea and Zoey and Kairi Sane. And we also had a match between Natalya, Roxanne Perez, and who was the other one? Who was the other one? I've lost that match in my... Oh, yeah, here it is. It was Becky. Becky and Natalya, and Roxanne was the other one. All right, so the show opened up tonight with Logan Paul. Logan Paul made his way to the ring, and he just talks about Jey Uso, just typical build for Saturday night's main event. Nothing big to speak of there. Talks about how he knocked him out 3 times. And that's when he's interrupted by Gunther, and I like that. Now, Gunther and Logan Paul face-to-face, that was going to be an interesting interaction to me because Logan is such a cocky, gum-chewing sack of shit. He can't do that with Gunther. Gunther is someone who should legitimately intimidate Logan Paul. There's no way Logan should be such a brash little prick in front of him. And Logan's demeanor did change. Now, granted, they're both heels, but I really liked the way Logan was like, okay, I better not be a fucking dickwad with this guy standing across from me. Also, shout out to Gunther for wearing normal, long, human-length pants. That exposed ankle shit that every single man does now. and Gunther sometimes does. He had his pants normal length. You have no idea how happy that made me. So Gunther's in there. And the reason Gunther came out is because he's got the winner. We know that Gunther is going to face the winner of Jey Uso and Logan Paul on, I believe, the June 9th Raw. That will be right after Money in the Bank. So him coming out and just kind of teasing a confrontation with Logan, I did like, even though that's not the match we're going to get. Jey Uso will beat Logan Paul on Saturday. He's not dropping the title to him. But Logan, Gunther talked about, Logan's confidence, and said, that's good. You should be confident. And Logan's kind of like nodding and agreeing with him, but also, kind of shitting his pants and dialing 911 in his pocket at the same time. And Gunther essentially just gets in Logan's face and says that if you win, if you beat Jey Uso, I am going to eat you alive. And I believe him. And then he walked away. And Logan starts calling back, why are you walking away from me? Why are you walking away from me? Crowd starts going apeshit. It's because Jey Uso comes in from behind. Logan turns around, boom, eats a super kick, and Logan was so butthurt about it. They were acting like he was going to leave. From the minute he got super kicked, I knew we were going to see him again. I thought he was going to come in and cost Jey Uso the match against Braun Breaker, and that's what I was really hoping would not happen. I don't like champions being pinned. I don't care if it happens every now and then, once in a blue moon or something, pin a champion, whatever, get somebody over to further an angle, no problem, but it happens way too frequently. AEW does those eliminator matches. WWE pins champions all the time. I just wish that could be reduced by about 75%. Then I'd be fine if a champion gets pinned here or there. So I just didn't want to see Uso get pinned. And I thought Logan was going to come out and do something in that match, but he waited until the end. Backstage, they showed Logan. They showed Logan backstage, a little boo-boo face, and he's like, I just want to go home, man. And then Rollins comes up to him, and he's like, Seth, this is not a good time. I got super kicked in the face. I just want to go home. And then Rollins tried to, kind of reassure him a little bit, and like, hey, if you beat Jey Uso, we're going to be running it back for the championship. So from our WrestleMania match. So they had a little interaction. It was just funny watching Logan being like, I got super kicked. I want to go home. Cracked me up. They show Roxanne Perez backstage with Adam Pearce. She officially signs her Raw contract, so she is now on Raw. We saw Julia showing up on SmackDown on Friday, being signed to a contract by Nick Aldis. Roxanne and Julia, they came in together for that brief little period, and then after last week, they kind of went their separate ways. So not too surprising that Julia, once they announced her for SmackDown, that Roxanne would be on Raw, so they just basically made that official. And like I said on the podcast on Saturday, since they just are doing this now, it doesn't seem, so you have two GMs that can, broker these deals and whatnot. So do you really need to do a draft if you're having GMs showing up saying, hey, you're on this show, you're on that show? If you need to even out these rosters, there's really no point to do a draft, in my opinion, if you can just do it like this. So hopefully storyline-wise and in kayfabe, Aldis and Pierce will handle any roster moves that need to be happening, and we don't have to waste an entire broadcast on an overproduced bullshit draft where many of the drafted stars wind up landing on the same show they're already on anyway, and just a big fucking waste of time. So doing it like this, I like. So now Roxanne is on Raw, Julia's on SmackDown. I'm hoping, whether or not they do a portal or whatever stupid ass shit they do, that they figure out ways to transfer or move talent around when need be without having to rely on the draft concept. So we'll see, but Roxanne is now officially on Raw. A lot of backstage stuff before we got to the wrestling. We had Paul Heyman and Jey Uso backstage where, Paul Heyman basically just tells Jey, hey, look, bro, the long-term plan here is Seth Rollins to win the World Heavyweight title. So we've kind of figured that ever since WrestleMania, when Seth won the main event, that he was going to be the next guy to hold that championship after Jey Uso, and that's probably going to be a SummerSlam thing. But we still have Money in the Bank. Jey Uso still has to survive Gunther on Saturday. Then he's got to survive Logan on Saturday, then Gunther on that June 9th Raw. Plus, whatever he does at Money in the Bank, although it might not be anything, I'm kind of hoping Jey Uso doesn't have a match at Money in the Bank and it's just John Cena that gets a match against like CM Punk or something like that. That would be pretty sweet. After that, we had AJ Styles and Penta. They took on Finn Balor and JD McDonough. So this was a tag team match. You knew we were going to see El Grande Americano here. He showed up in the crowd, delivered a headbutt to Penta. Balor grabs Penta, chucks him back in the ring, hits him with the coup de Gracie for the win, and a big win there for Judgment Day over AJ and Penta, which is a kind of an interesting team. I kind of liked seeing those two together. I'm like, AJ and Penta, Yeah, AJ and Penta. That's cool. So it's not something I would have, if you would have told me 2 years ago, I would see. I'd be like, how the hell am I going to see that? But we saw it. Then we go backstage where Io Sky is being interviewed by Kathy Kelly. My God. Becky Lynch shows up and she said she already put down one champ. She'll be happy to put down another. So she's basically saying when she wins Money in the Bank, she's coming after Io Sky and that Io Sky has never beaten her. Then we are backstage again. Grayson Waller and the New Day. I think this was like an interview or something during the commercial break, so I didn't write anything down. So now it's time for... Well, I guess before that, we had Seth and Logan. I talked about Seth and Logan backstage earlier. This is when Logan was like, I got super kicked and I want to go home. And Rollins says that Jay is going to get hurt tonight, so if Logan wins the title on Saturday night's main event, he's going to know who to thank, and talked about running it back. So that was the next segment there. Then it is on to our first Money in the Bank triple threat match of the night. It's Becky Lynch taking on Natalya, who I've been loving lately, and Roxanne Perez. Going into this match, I kind of had a feeling based on what we saw happen to Lyra that she would probably make her presence known here, and so that could cancel out Becky. I was really hoping to see Natalya win, but you could kind of feel this was going to be Roxanne's match to win here. It just felt like that going into it. And sure enough, Lyra Valkyria shows up. Got a pretty good reaction from the audience, too, when she grabbed a hold of Becky, started brawling with her. Becky is now knocked out of the match. Roxanne comes in from behind on Natalya, hits her with her Pop Rocks finisher, and gets the win. And a lot of people like Roxanne Perez. I, for some reason, am still maintaining this like indifferent feeling towards her. I don't know why. I think it has a lot to do with, to me anyway, maybe not to everybody else, but to me, she looks like a child. She looks like Denise Salcedo in there wrestling a match. She looks like a kid who dressed up as Christina Ricci for Halloween or something. She's just so, and it's not that she's short, because Layla Hirsch is short, but Layla Hirsch doesn't give me that feeling. Roxanne, to me, my perception of her is she looks like a child in the ring, and it just looks weird to me. But she's good. She's really good in the ring. She was excellent in NXT. You know, I could see right away when they called her up, why they called her up. And she has good matches and stuff. And so I have a feeling my opinion of her is going to change. And that already started when she was backstage later on with the Judgment Day, which we'll talk about in a minute. And a potential Roxanne, Liv Morgan issue could be a lot of fun to watch. So I have a feeling that my indifferentness towards Roxanne is about to change. I'm about to start liking her a lot, but right now it just looks like a little tiny child with a lot of makeup on is wrestling, and it just looks weird. So that's all I can say about Roxanne Perez. For what might be the final time, we had Sami Zayn and Jey Uso backstage. Sami basically, giving Jey, just a little pep talk for his match later on against Braun Breaker, and he said, don't worry about those guys. He goes, me and Punk are going to take care of business on Saturday night's main event, and I'm predicting Rollins and Breaker to win that match, and we've also been feeling like there's going to be another member added to that Heyman group. So I feel like we could see a Sami Zayn turn right on Saturday night's main event where Sami turns on CM Punk and joins Heyman and Rollins and Breaker. But then again, Sami really wants to be world champion. So if we get that new member, it might not be Sami turning. Sami and Punk might just straight up lose, and Heyman, Rollins, and Breaker have got a new member. Who that is, I have no idea. So I feel like it's going to go one of those two ways. Breaker and Rollins are going to get that win on Saturday night's main event, and it's going to be due to either Sami turning and joining them or somebody else joining them and costing Sami and Punk the match. That's my prediction there. Then it's time for Grayson Waller and Austin Theory. So I believe they first started teasing the Waller and Theory split somewhere around 1984, 1985. It's been about 40 years since they first started hinting to us that Waller and Theory are heading for a split or a Theory babyface turn, whatever it is. All I know is Reagan was still president when the shit started. So now it's Waller and Sheamus. Waller got Theory the match against Sheamus a week or so ago, and then Theory turned around and got Waller ones against Sheamus, and both are done, with the intent on, just try to help you out, bro, get you a match on Raw, and they're both kind of secretly fucking each other over. So, at some point that whole thing is going to implode. It just might not implode until I'm dead. But anyway, it was a bro kick to Grayson Waller for the win. Sheamus is so good. This match actually was competitive. It went way longer than I thought. I thought Sheamus was going to smack this little prick around, but Waller, who's got himself in great shape, I think hanging around Theory, Waller's a big guy and stuff, but he was never he didn't have a whole lot of muscular definition from what I remember in NXT, but I think hanging around Theory, and Theory's jacked, I think Waller has gotten himself jacked. So he's looking real good, and Sheamus ate him for lunch. So we'll see. At some point, Waller in Theory and this bullshit has got to end. And I have a feeling it's going to be a very, very kind of underwhelming split where the fans almost don't care, which means there's going to be all of this build and all this tease for a very, very, minimal payoff. But it is what it is. After that, oh God, this is weird. So all night long, right? All night long, they're talking about Tyrese Halliburton and Jalen Brunson, I think, right? So it's the New York Knicks and the Indiana Pacers, who I believe are meeting in the Eastern Conference Finals, right? They had a run-in between these two players last year, back in 2024. Brunson hopped the barricade. There was a little face-off. Of course, it was all done in good fun, and they kept referencing that, of course, when the Knicks polished off the Celtics the other night. Triple H is like, oh, it's like we wrote it or whatever. So they're, kind of incorporating basketball. I mean, this would be way more fun for me if it was 20 years ago. It was very, very interesting to see Karl Malone and Dennis Rodman play each other in the finals and wrestle each other at the same time. To me, that was just batshit bonkers. So, this will never match that. But I mean, in the 80s, if you got Barkley and Bill Laimbeer involved in fucking wrestling, or Michael Jordan, Isaiah Thomas, or Larry Bird and Chuck Person, or any other big time NBA rivalry, I probably would have been all about this shit. But my God, it's just, they just keep talking about it over and over. And then they announced that they're going to have an interview later on in the night with Tyrese Halliburton, and he has a big announcement. Stay tuned for a big announcement from Tyrese Halliburton. Okay, what the fuck is he going to say? So it's inside the NBA. So finally it's time for that now. Michael Cole and Pat McAfee are on opposite sides here because Pat McAfee played for the Indianapolis Colts, so he's rooting for the Indianapolis Pacers. Michael Cole is from New York. He's a Knicks fan. He's rooting for the Knicks. So the two of them have a bet. The two of them have a bet where if the Knicks win, if the Pacers win, then Michael Cole has to broadcast an entire Monday Night Raw in a tank top. And if the Knicks win, then Pat McAfee is going to have to do the announcing wearing a full suit. And I swear, when they were talking about this, Cole said, or Pat's saying the term, saying what the terms are, and he's explaining the bet. And he says, he goes, if the Pacers win, Cole's got to do an entire show in a tank top. And if the Knicks win, I'll wear a full suit I swear he said like a cuck. And I'm like, what? I know shit. I rewound it 30 times. It was really hard. And I'm like, what is he saying? And after re-listening to it over and over, I'm pretty sure he said clown. But that's not what my ears heard at first. I'm like, what? You know how a dog looks at you when they're surprised? I was like, what? I could not believe I thought that he said that. Luckily, it doesn't look like he did, which that's a relief. And then they interviewed Tyrese Halliburton on Skype or whatever the fuck. Looks like Tyrese lives in a studio apartment. And whatever this announcement was, it had something to do with the WWE 2K25 game and something with DLC. I don't even know what the fuck that is. So anyway, there's some sort of cross promotion there with Tyrese. He's going to be a playable player in WWE 2K25, but I haven't played a wrestling game since Pro Wrestling Starman on the NES. So I don't know what the hell any of that means, but had something to do with the video game, and that is 10 minutes of my life I can't get back. Then we're backstage to see Seth Rollins and Gunther having a little run-in. And Seth says, hey, dude, if you win the championship, you're going to make yourself a target. You're going to make yourself a target. And Gunther basically just says, bring it, bitch. So that could be fun, too. Gunther's not going to win the title, but I'm curious to see if they move Gunther to SmackDown or not, because if they don't, he is going to be on Raw. And unless they have him tied up in some angle, at some point he's going to have to butt heads with Rollins and Braun Breaker. And I wouldn't be surprised if maybe after Money in the Bank, after that Raw, after Money in the Bank, when Gunther has his title shot and he's likely going to lose that, we should probably get babyface Gunther. It's probably time to get a babyface Gunther, I think. It's kind of starting, everything, we haven't even seen him with Ludwig lately. And then the match with Pat McAfee, even at the end, he kind of gave him a little nod there, show respect. He came out tonight and got in Logan Paul's face. Then he was in another heel's face backstage, Seth Rollins. So it's starting. I think Gunther will be a babyface pretty soon. And then maybe they move him to SmackDown. I don't know. Up next, it was time for that very unfortunate women's triple threat match. It was Rhea Ripley taking on Kairi Sane and Zoey Stark. This is a Money in the Bank qualifier, and like I talked about in the very beginning of the stream here, when Zoey went for her springboard dropkick, she came down very awkwardly on her leg, and her knee just buckled, and it did not look good. That is definitely going to probably be an ACL type of thing. She went down. Doctors came out to take care of her. The camera was pretty much off of her the whole time, and she was carried out from ringside, leaving Kairi Sane and Rhea Ripley in the ring to finish the match. And like I said earlier, I'm really curious to read soon, if somebody can get to the bottom of it, if any adjustments in this match were made. Even maybe the outcome. I'm curious. I don't know if it's a guarantee that Ripley was going to win this, because I don't see why Ripley... maybe it's just to get her in the match, get her on Money in the Bank. I thought maybe she was already going to challenge Io Sky for the title. She would just get a title shot at Money in the Bank against Io Sky, and she wouldn't be in the Money in the Bank match at all. So, and with Kairi Sane coming back, it would stand to reason that most people would think, hey, in a triple threat match, Kairi can win this, just pin Zoey, and that's it. But then Zoey went down. So if Ripley was always scheduled to win, she was probably going to pin Zoey Stark. But if not, no big deal. You just make her pin Kairi. No big deal. She still wins. No big deal. Whatever. Triple threat match. Kairi's not buried. Everybody stop freaking out. Have a Pop-Tart. Go upstairs. Do your homework. And let the adults talk, please. So Ripley winning, you can just change who she pins. No big deal. But if Kairi was scheduled to win, she was definitely going to pin Zoey Stark, because they're not going to pin Rhea Ripley right now, especially if they were going to give Ripley a title shot at Money in the Bank for whatever reason. If they're going to do that, they don't want to pin her, which means I'm wondering if behind the scenes Triple H was like, shit, we got to change the whole finish now. What can we do? Kairi's supposed to win, but we can't have her pin Ripley. Ripley's too huge and too over. She's our ace in the hole right now. We're not pinning her. So I'm curious. I have a feeling that it was probably scheduled to be Ripley all along, which doesn't anger me. It's fine, because I don't give a shit that Ripley won the Money in the Bank qualifier. So many fans, it's going to be Ripley Hogan again. I'm like, winning the Money in the Bank qualifier doesn't guarantee. They all think it does. Oh, she's going to win the briefcase now. Now, I'm not saying she's not. I don't think she needs to. I'm not going to assume I know what WWE's doing. I don't think there's any reason for Ripley to win the briefcase. She doesn't need it. She's Ripley. She gets title shots based on her name alone. So there's really no reason for her to have a briefcase, because you can always get Rhea Ripley a title shot. It's never going to be difficult for her to get a title shot. I want that briefcase to go to Naomi. That shit is Naomi's to win. So Rhea Ripley being in the Money in the Bank, as long as Naomi is the one pulling it off the thing, who gives a shit if she won tonight? Like, who cares? So it shouldn't even matter. She's probably not even going to win. But I also didn't think like Io would come out and interfere, because, Io's a babyface, and she's not going to come out and screw over Ripley, even though she's, homies with Kairi. I just didn't see that being an option. So I am curious what the original plan was, and it probably was just Ripley to win. And who knows? Maybe she was even set to pin Starks. Maybe they didn't have to really change anything, but something had to have been adjusted there. Either the finish, or who won, or both, had to have been probably audibled a little bit there. So they survived. Rhea Ripley hit the Riptide onto Kairi for the win, and she is now advanced and qualified for Money in the Bank, along with Roxanne Perez from the Raw brand. So interesting match there. Curious to read the details on that. And, of course, all the best to Zoey Stark. Let's really, really pray for a miracle tomorrow. The way she landed, what are you guys expecting to read? That shit happens in a football game. That's some Joe Theismann level shit there, She done. That just sucks. Heartbroken. So pray for a miracle, y'all. Backstage, we've got Judgment Day. And Dominic is kind of mid-sentence talking about being excited for Liv Morgan to come back, and then he's interrupted, and he looks kind of disappointed that he wasn't able to finish his sentence about Liv Morgan. And then Finn Balor shows up, and he's got Roxanne Perez with him. Now, the two of them have been seen. Oh, that reminds me. Earlier when I mentioned New Day and Waller, I just had that written down. I was thinking it was like a commercial interview. It wasn't. They were backstage. That's why I wrote that down. It was during that Seth Rollins and Logan backstage interaction, I think, is when you saw New Day and Grayson Waller hanging out, walking together. So something's going on there with the two of them, much like something was going on with Finn Balor and Roxanne Perez, who had been seen together back in the background of a couple of interviews over the past couple of weeks. So they were trying to tell us something there. Balor brings her in, suggests that they add her to Judgment Day. Dominic insists that they need to talk to Liv about this, but Balor's like, no, man, you're the one that's been saying we need more people, and I've been talking to Roxanne the past few weeks, and I think she'd be perfect, and Dominic is all uncomfortable about it. And then Roxanne presents Dominic with, looked like a little JCPenney box that you would get like a shirt in or something, like when you were a kid opening up clothes for Christmas, like one of those boxes, and she opens it up, and it's a bunch of nuggies or tendies. So maybe she's trying to turn him off of tendies and get him onto nuggies. I don't know. But Dom seemed to accept the nuggies. They were sauceless, of course. You know, and my mama always said that life is like a box of nuggies. You always know what you're going to get. Chicken. Every time. It's always chicken. So he got some chicken nuggies. He seems okay with it. And I think that's a really interesting feud idea. And potentially a good one. I think Roxanne and Liv Morgan could be a lot of fun. And if we're going to get another love triangle, I mean, some fans were pointing out, oh, they just did this shit last year with Ripley and Liv and Nuggies or Tendies, and now it's going to be Liv and Roxanne and Nuggies, and maybe Dominic is going to dump Liv for Roxanne, or Liv's going to be paranoid about that. Either way, Liv completely controls Dom anyway. He seems legitimately frightened of her. Like, no, dudes, I gotta, just the same way he was with Ripley. You know, I gotta talk to her first, but... So Dominic is probably going to be a little bit on the stressed out side, you know, for the next couple of weeks. And it will be interesting to see how Liv feels about Roxanne Perez. And I was just talking about how Roxanne, I've kind of been indifferent towards her up until now. But when I think about a Roxanne and Liv Morgan program or feud or angle, I can get behind that. That sounds like it might be fun. So, that is definitely on the horizon. Dominic, poor fella, better watch out, man. All right, that left us with the main event. Jey Uso taking on Braun Breaker. This is a non-title match, by the way. Wasn't expecting a finish here. Don't see either guy eating a pin. Not right now. You got the champion in there, and you got Braun Breaker, who's going to be the next big thing in this company. There's no doubt about it. And the match, you know, I was trying to judge the match a little bit. It wasn't that bad. How do you guys feel about Uso and Breaker tonight compared to their IC matches from last year? Good or better? What do you think? I thought they were just fine. Wasn't a great match, but it wasn't a Jey Uso stinker like some of us were fearing it would be. But in the end, it was Paul Heyman out there, of course, getting involved a couple of times. Finally, he grabs a hold of Jey Uso's leg. Uso gets pissed, hops out of the ring, starts chasing Heyman around, and Heyman is like backing up, and he's taking off his jacket. And what I'm expecting to happen is Breaker to come flying around with that running spear of his, but that doesn't happen. Seth Rollins comes in through the crowd from behind instead, attacks Jey Uso before he can get his hands on Paul Heyman, and the referee immediately calls for the bell. So Jey Uso is going to pick up the win here via DQ. Then there is a big brawl. Sami Zayn comes out. He hops on the apron. He stops. And then CM Punk's music hits. It's Punk and Sammy. They hit the ring. They're brawling with Breaker and Rollins. They spill all through the crowd and whatnot, and they're brawling all wherever, you know, outside the ring. And then Jey Uso, who was left in there all by himself, Logan Paul shows back up, sneaks up from behind and decks Jey Uso, knocks him out with a punch for, I believe, the fourth time that Uso has been laid out by Logan Paul. So, of course, the two of them have their big championship match on Saturday night's main event this Saturday, and Jey Uso will 100% retain. There's no way they're putting that belt on Logan Paul. They better not. So, you know, if I had, I mean, obviously I'm going to give you guys some predictions later this week, but, you know, off the top of my head, I think Rollins and Breaker are going to win the tag. I think Cena's going to beat R-Truth. I think Jey Uso is going to beat Logan Paul, and I think Damian Priest is going to beat Drew McIntyre in the cage. So those are kind of my early predictions for Saturday night's main event. Next week, we've got the big triple threat tag team title match, I should say. New Day is going to be defending against the War Raiders and the Creeds. I got a feeling that we are going to see Grayson Waller interfere in that, or Austin Theory, both of them perhaps, are going to have something to do with this. New Day is going to retain next week, and however they do it, it's got to have something to do with Grayson Waller because we saw them together backstage tonight. And also, we are getting Rusev versus Tozawa. Rusev had another one of his little vignettes where he talked about his match with Tozawa next week, and it's going to be an absolute squash. So that was pretty much it. 2.5 hour Raw tonight, as usual, as has been the case on Netflix. They haven't really been difficult to watch. Everything here was, somewhat important. A couple of qualifiers and a couple of interesting segments. It didn't feel like there was a whole lot of filler or just time-killing shit, which tends to be the case sometimes during more dead parts of the year. But overall, I thought the show was decent tonight. What did you guys think? Ooh, Mommy in the Bank. I would like to see that. I want to thank Ryan Adams for the $2. Also, Finn being the messy uncle is great. Yeah, he really is. Brian says Stephanie Vaquer and Trick Williams are next. Maybe. You don't want to empty out NXT. I worry about Trick Williams. You know why I worry about Trick Williams? 2 words. Carmelo Hayes. That's why. I mean, Carmelo is just unbelievably talented. They made such a big deal about him. He was like their SmackDown's first pick or whatever it was. And Jesus, what the hell has he done? A pile of dick. Trick, I'm worried about. I think he can be a big star, but I might keep him in NXT for a little while longer. And if I'm going to call up anybody, maybe it's Obafemi, who I think is more of a can't miss than Trick Williams. Trick Williams, I feel like WWE will fuck him up. So it might not be time yet. Plus, I think Stephanie should chill too, just for a bit, not for too long, just chill. But you're probably right. Those are going to be the next names. Stephanie, Trick, Obafemi are probably all going to be up very soon. The Juliet, what's up? Were there Austin Theory chants tonight? I did not hear or notice them. That's crazy. Yo, Joshua, sorry to hear about that. I had a close friend pass away. Now I'm back. I had a close friend pass away too recently, just in the last 2 weeks. One of the very first people I met getting into my restaurant career 32 years ago. She was great. She really looked out for me. All of them did. I was just a young little piece of shit, and I was working with a lot of people. I was only 15, 16, and they were all in their 20s and really looked out for me and stuff and took care of me. And one of them passed away. Sorry to hear about that, Josh. I'm glad you are back now. Good to see Zane G and Max in here as well. Cape Verde, Thunder up. I don't have my eye on any games right now. Ryan Adams has got 5 more. Thanks, dude. So Raquel, So Raquel ignored Carlito's advances, but the second someone gave Carlito attention, Raquel gets all jealous and smacks the apple out of his hand. Yeah, I guess I didn't really catch that. But Carlito has been all up on Raquel. She doesn't seem too into him, but now she doesn't like it when Carlito's eyes start wandering elsewhere. And now with little Roxanne in that group, I think that's going to create some tension with the women, It's going to be like one of those reality shows where everybody's jealous of each other and stuff. So now you got essentially 3 women in the Judgment Day. That's the most amount of women in a single faction ever, isn't it? I would think. So, I mean, that is if Roxanne actually stays in. This might just be her introductory angle before it doesn't work out. But, kind of like her vibe and, her look and the way she dresses, it matches with the Judgment Day. It's a lot of dark stuff and all the bright, red lipstick and the dark hair and the leather and all that stuff fits in. She matches there better than some others would. That's for sure. She fits in better than Lyra ever would. So there might be a 3rd woman. There you go, Juliet. If the 3rd member doesn't show up, what if it turns out just to be Roman? Roman Reigns showing up and at Saturday night's main event and costing Punk and Seth the match. They could do that, but then that would usually result in some sort of a match to follow, and that means Roman would be having a match at Money in the Bank. I feel like you'd keep Roman Reigns off of TV because if he was on TV, you'd think he'd be in a Money in the Bank qualifier, or he'd want to be. But then again, he's got some revenge to get. I mean, no, we can't do that. I was about to say, what if Roman turns? What if Roman joins the group? But that would not make any sense, the dynamic with him and Seth. And he showing and like realigning with Paul Heyman right after Heyman turned on him. That wouldn't make any sense. But yeah, I mean, we saw Roman the night after WrestleMania on Raw, right? That whole brawl thing. And that's kind of the tag match I thought they were going to do. So Roman could actually work. And since Seth, is Seth going to have time to even get in a Money in the Bank qualifier? I mean, maybe Roman shows up and maybe we get Roman and Seth at Money in the Bank. I don't know what they're going to do. Adding Roman to that on Saturday, they could do that. But I almost feel like we're not going to see him. I think they're going to save Roman for something else, whatever that may be. And it probably, well, no, it won't probably. I was about to say, we could get Seth and Roman at SummerSlam, but I think Seth's going to win the title at SummerSlam, so it might be Roman and Punk. I don't know what they're going to do yet. I have no idea. Stephen Harris, Zoey Stark is injured. They need a replacement for her. Well, replacement for what? She's not in a faction. That whole thing with the Sonya Deville's gone. Like Zoey leaving, you mean just having another wrestler in her spot? You don't need to even bother replacing her spot necessarily. She wasn't doing anything anyway. But if she is injured, that's a shame. Okay, you can put a 6-man, Roman, Punk, Sammy, Seth, Braun, and mystery partner at Money in the Bank. Look at Vince Happiness and Dom's tweet. You guys are going to have to tag me in something like that. I'm in the middle of a stream. I don't want to find that. Tag me in it, Ryan, and then I'll take a look. But I'm glad Finn is happy for his boy. I love me some Dominic. He's the best. Okay, yeah, Joe Hendry and Trick Williams in the middle of a program as well, and I'm just not a Hendry guy. I'm just not. Like, I like him and wish him the best, and that's a catchy song, and I'm happy he got himself over. But I just do not see like a future WrestleMania main eventer in that guy at all. I like LA Knight better than him. So Joe Hendry, there's been talk of, he's expected to sign with WWE when his contract is up in like 2 years. I'm like, shit, by then, all the shit's going to be over. So he's going to have to keep himself over, relevant, and keeping the fans liking him for another like year or so before he even hits WWE and can do anything major. So yeah, I'm just, I don't think I was never into it right from the start. I liked Joe Hendry, totally. Liked the song. Love when anybody is able to get themselves over in the way that he was. But I wasn't jumping on this train of, oh my God, this guy's going to be the next big thing. I just wasn't feeling it. Wasn't feeling it. Still don't feel it. No, Juliet, I like Joe Hendry, and I believe in him to an extent, but I don't believe. He's going around saying he wants to get a match with John Cena and stuff, and he believes it's going to happen. I don't. I would not burn a precious final John Cena appearance, on a guy that got over with a song. That bullshit that Punk said to Seth Rollins last week about, oh, you're just a song, kid, then the bell rings. Imagine saying that to one of the best wrestlers in the world, Punky idiot. Where you need to be saying that is to Joe Hendry. That's the person you need to be saying that to. But no, I do believe in him, and I have a mad respect for anybody that can get themselves over in the way that he did. Some guys can do that. Zack Ryder kind of did that. People just kind of make names for themselves outside or on social media or whatever, or spend some of their own money to get a song made. Turns out to be catchy. Fans start sharing it, singing it, chanting his name at arenas. That's how it all starts. He did an excellent job with all that. Okay, good. I'm going to check out this tweet real quick. Oh, yeah, I know. Oh, that's a better one. I want to use that one for the thumbnail. But no, the one I'm using in the thumbnail, he kind of has a face. He already has a face going like that. So I've seen that. I used it for this video. But yeah, looking at Finn's face when he gets those nuggies and the box, I just can't get over the box those nuggies are in. That's not like a food takeout box. That's a box that you would put a tie or like a really thin, small dress shirt. It's one of those little boxes you would get from like Macy's or JCPenney that you put clothes in. That's where his chicken nuggets were. Sacrilege, man. Blasphemy. My God. Yeah, Roxanne, she reminds me a little bit of a young Alexa Bliss, too. She just looks like a child. She's so short, and then she just looks like a kid to me. She looks like a little kid. Like if Roxanne Perez showed up at my door on Halloween and said trick or treat, I'd give her candy. Like that's how young she looks to me. So it's just hard. My brain is having trouble now that I'm getting older, like looking at children in the ring. Yes, we did see Brock Lesnar's daughter, Maya, who we've talked about before. We've seen pictures of her a couple years ago. She's just identical. I don't know how Brock Lesnar did it, but he managed to have a baby all by himself. He didn't need a mother. He just got himself pregnant and had a kid. And it's like, it's Brock, but with longer hair and younger and a girl. That's it. It's Brock Lesnar. And she's throwing that shot put 7,000 yards. Kid's a beast, an absolute beast, goes to Colorado State, multi-level athlete. She's unbelievable. And when you look at her, it's like, man, did the mom's genes even try? She was born in 2002, so this is not Sable's daughter. This is who Brock was with prior to that. But girl's 23 years old and a fucking beast. If you haven't seen those videos of her, check it out. I really hope Brock can talk her into getting into wrestling. I mean, I think she'd be great. Imagine if we can get like Maya Lesnar versus Ava Raine. Could be fun. Yeah, Zoey's filling could be someone from NXT, but Zoey didn't have a spot that would need to be filled. It's just, if Ripley went out, you'd want to get another main eventer in there or something like that. But this is Zoey Stark. There's 7 of her back there. So I don't think that her going down is as unfortunate as that is something that WWE's got to shuffle around and, to fix the roster now. Like, just go without her. It's no big deal. Like, think about the people that they released Sonya Deville. They didn't like run and replace her today. Well, I guess maybe they did, bringing in the NXT people. But still, I don't even think you need to really worry about replacing her on the roster, because why? I mean, you still could, but you don't need to. You know what I mean? I don't know if I've seen many pictures of Seth's kids maybe a little bit. I didn't realize how much that his daughter looked like him, though. But Brock's is unmistakable. My God. So crazy. I see a little bit of Brandy in Cody's daughter. She's got those eyes. But yeah, that girl is just incredible. Maya Lesnar. Keep a lookout for her. All right, guys, that's going to do it for this evening. I want to thank you for hanging out tonight on this quick little Raw review. If you don't mind hitting that thumbs up button on your way out the door, that would be terrific. And I will be catching you guys in a few days. It's going to be a weird weekend because there's a lot of wrestling going on, and I've got to work through all of it. So we will probably still do a podcast on Saturday. I'm going to be incapacitated for the next 2 days because I got a doctor's appointment. But by the weekend, I'll be working. We'll do the podcast on Saturday. I'll give you guys predictions for Double or Nothing and Saturday night's main event, and then we'll probably have to review those shows after the fact. So just stay tuned for YouTube shorts and whatnot hitting the channel this week. Other than that, we'll be back here in podcast form on Saturday. And then in 13 more days, 2 weeks from last night, we need to figure out what our next classic watch-along will be, because that's the next time we'll be back for that. So thanks again. You guys have a good rest of your Monday night, and I'll be talking to you real soon. Peace.